Our crime and punishment season continues next Thursday at 9. Catch all the UEFA Europa League highlights in 45 minutes, right after tonight's ITV News at 10.
Tonight, Americans got a clear view of the face of the latest maniac with a gun. Nicholas Cruz certainly isn't the first mass murderer to mow down school children, and the truly unsettling thing is that all America knows he won't be the last. In the course of the day, we got a sense of the horror inside that school and of the panic outside as the police tried to hunt Cruz down.
We got the suspect detained.
In the end, he was cornered and cuffed, but as Americans turned to the White House, the response was clear: no chance of a change in the gun laws.
We are committed to working with state and local leaders to help secure our schools and tackle the difficult issue of mental health.
But with one school shooting on average every week this year, yes, one a week, can no change really be tenable? Also on News at 10. As the smirking football coach Barry Bennell is found guilty, we can reveal he is thought to have abused almost 100 boys. And as this footage shows, he has never shown any remorse.
Anything you'd like to say to the little boy?
Little boy? He wasn't a little boy. He treated me. 14.
You'll see tonight the incredible bravery of those who gave evidence against him. Plus,
President of the Republic of South Africa.
Celebrations in South Africa as Zuma's successor is finally sworn in as president. And something at the end to inspire us all. The boy who lost his legs but is poised to go back into professional motor racing.
This is ITV News at 10 with Tom Bradby.
Good evening. It has got to stop. Over and over we heard it today from politicians and parents in the United States, just as we have so many times before. The man who might actually be able to make it stop, President Trump, said the issue was mental health, not guns. This killer was a 19-year-old former pupil at the school in Florida. Nicholas Cruz appeared in court this evening charged with 17 counts of premeditated murder. The FBI did own up to receiving a warning a year ago that Cruz had recorded a message on YouTube saying he was going to be a professional school shooter.
Tonight, the teenage gunman who has destroyed so many lives here shuffled his way into the courtroom. He looked sullen as he faced the judge.
Mister, are you Nicholas Jacob Cruz?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, sir. You are charged with 17 counts of premeditated murder. I have something very important to tell you. You're charged with some very serious crimes.
His defense lawyer insists that Cruz has profound regrets.
He's sad, he's mournful, he's remorseful. He is fully aware of what is going on, and he's just a broken human being.
Cool Springs Police wants to evacuate approximately 40 students from Building 800.
America is left to grapple with the consequences of another mass shooting in a school.
I have the gunshot victim. He's by the entrance to Westglades on the west side of the school.
The country again confronting images of frightened teenagers running for their lives.
Fire rescue. One injured person. He's shot.
And of police teams leading pupils to safety, while other units hunted for a heavily armed killer on the loose. Video from inside the high school captures the terror of pupils. A policeman carrying a survivor to safety amid this Valentine's Day massacre. Other pupils were hiding under desks and in cupboards. Some teachers defending students with their bodies and with their very lives. The shooting itself was filmed on a phone. Too distressing to show in full. The opening gunshots are shockingly loud. And this footage shows the moment a heavily armed SWAT team entered a classroom to reach terrified students.
Hands, put your hands up, please. Put your phones away, Does anybody have bolt cutters? I can get this kid out of the fence.
Police radio communications reveal the urgency and the confusion that surrounded their entry into the school.
Gary, does he know where the shooter is? We don't know, but we're entering the building, in front of the 13 building 13.
One student followed a teacher's suggestion and used a textbook as a shield.
And she's like, grab a book, grab a book. So I took a book. It was a tiny book, but I took a book and I held it up. And I believe maybe the book kind of deterred some of the bullets, so it didn't hit me so badly.
Teachers here say they're tired of leaders expressing sympathy, but doing nothing.
I mean, here we are, and we're like the latest statistic on, on school violence. And as a society, as Americans, we're failing our children. We're not keeping them safe, and Congress is failing us, and the government is failing us, and something has to be done.
Many of those killed were found inside the school, but the gunman had escaped. His identity was already known.
Description of the subject is going to be a white male, last seen wearing a burgundy shirt, possibly Nicholas Cruz.
And this was the dramatic moment of the arrest. A police officer running to get handcuffs on the suspect, while another kept a gun trained on the prone figure.
We have the suspect detained. 10-4, can we get a positive confirmation on Nicholas Cruz being detained? 10-4.
Cruz was a former student at the school with a history of disciplinary problems and with access to all the weaponry he needed. On his social media accounts, there were disturbing images of Cruz posing with weapons. A perfect storm of a young man with access to guns and harboring a grudge beyond comprehension. Earlier today, the president, a fierce defender of gun rights and the Second Amendment, made his first comments on the tragedy.
I want to speak now directly to America's children, especially those who feel lost, alone, confused, or even scared. I want you to know that you are never alone and you never will be. We are committed to working with state and local leaders to help secure our schools and tackle the difficult issue of mental health.
Tonight, we spoke to Kelsey Friend, heartbroken after watching a teacher gunned down in front of her.
I heard the gunshots over and over and over again, up and down the halls, down below us, kids screaming. I heard a young man crying for his mother when he was dying, and it was terrifying.
Her geography teacher, Scott Beagle, tried to lock the classroom door, but was a fraction too late.
He fell in the middle of the doorway, where he lied dead for probably more than an hour. And I was crying because he's my favorite teacher.
What would your message to President Trump be?
My message, please do something. That's all I'm asking, is to please do something. I lost multiple friends today. I lost my favorite teacher. I lost people I cared about the most.
Kelsey and her fellow students are left to ask a question that goes to the heart of this nation's political culture. Why on earth is America paralyzed, unable to even address this epidemic of gun violence? Robert Moore, News at 10, Parkland in Florida.
Well, let's be honest, that could hardly be more sobering viewing, and the Parkland shooting has the unwanted distinction of becoming the 9th deadliest such attack in the United States. Its name joins the roll call of schools visited by gunfire and death. The attack only served to highlight yet again the prevalence of guns in American life. It was the 18th time this year already that one has been fired in an American school. in a patchwork of violence in cities and towns from coast to coast. The sights and the sounds are all eerily familiar, and so too is the response.
Why don't we together say that we're going to make America the safest big country in the world in the 21st century, starting with making our children safe.
Schools should be places of safety and sanctuary and learning.
This time, the words need to lead to action.
This time, once again, those who find themselves living through tragedy demand change.
Now is the time for this country to have a real conversation on sensible gun control laws in this country.
The logic of the demand seems inescapable. The US gun murder rate is far in excess of that of any other Western country, with almost 3 gun murders for every 100,000 people. That's 10 times the figure in Germany, almost 30 times that for the UK. In fact, it's only comparable to South American countries like Argentina. And it's not as if there is no political support. This was from the US Senate.
When is enough going to be enough? Let's just not talk about it. Let's do something about it.
This happens nowhere else, but as a consequence of our inaction. We are responsible.
So is it the people as a whole who oppose change? Well, no. The latest opinion poll asked Americans if they supported stricter gun laws. 59% said yes. Asked if they supported requiring background checks, 95% said yes, and on gun modification, 68% supported it. So why is nothing changing? Simply because here on Capitol Hill, a very well-organised gun lobby skillfully uses history, money and raw politics to thwart all those who push for reform. To give you an idea, the gun lobby, the NRA, spent $50 million on politics in 2016, the bulk of which, $31 million, went into backing Donald Trump's presidential bid. The truth is, change so far has proved just too much trouble, and thus, for now, there is a terrible chance, even likelihood, we will witness scenes like these again. Well, let's go back and join Robert in Florida. Robert, I don't know how much of that you could hear, but you know very well the power of the NRA, its organisation, and yet there is some considerable support for reform of gun laws. Do you think this changes anything in the end?
Look, I don't want to be too cynical or bleak, Tom, but today we've seen exactly the same kind of gestures and rituals we always see. The flags are flying at half-mast, there's been silence on the floor of the Senate, and today we had this quite remarkable spectre of the President of the United States seeing the massacre that happened here purely through the prism of a mental health issue. No mention whatsoever, not even one word about guns. There was no change after Sandy Hook, no change after the Las Vegas massacre. Remember, they didn't even ban retrospectively those rapid-fire accessories known as bump stocks, and I don't think reform is even really on the agenda now, especially if Congress stays in the hands of either Republicans or more conservative Democrats. And to be honest, Tom, it isn't just an issue about politicians. You heard in my report I was speaking to a young student who watched her geography teacher die. Well, after that interview, her mother came up to me and said, there is a solution to the gun crisis. We need to arm teachers.
Okay, Robert, thank you very much indeed. Well, back here now, and the smirking face of the football coach Barry Bennell in this next report is likely to make you feel pretty ill, as it has all of us here today. And if there was any doubt of the lasting legacy of this man's revolting crimes, it was written on the faces of his victims outside that court. The final verdicts in his trial were given out this afternoon, guilty of another 7 charges, making 43 this week in all. And that is not the half of it. It now transpires another 86 men have come forward in the past few months. Today, 3 of those he'd abused, survivors, they call themselves, said the stolen voices of a generation had finally been heard.
For decades, these men have suffered in silence. This afternoon, they were released from their pain.
Today, we faced that fear. We broke the silence and we took back our voice. We looked our abuser in the eye. We are no longer afraid of you, Barry Bennell. Today, justice was done, and you no longer have any power over us. You are nothing to us at all.
Bennell spent his career exploiting his reputation.